Logan King.
And I'm Sage Del Carlo, and we're here with Nat Grassa. So Nat, we're going to ask you a few questions. If you could completely change one thing about the world, what would it be?
If I could completely change one thing about the world, it would be all the conflict that we have.
All right, and our second question for you is, who do you admire most?
I admire my mom the most.
All right.
If you were to pull out your greatest strengths, which ones would those be?
My greatest strengths are leadership and I would say bringing change to the world.
All right, our last question for you today is, what motivates you the most?
I would say just bringing more positive change to our country and being the best leader I can be.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Casey.
I'm Danielle, and we're interviewing Mark Emery today.
So Mark, if you could completely change one thing about the world, what would it be?
That's a great question. If I did completely change something about the world, it would probably be the environment.
Very nice.
And who do you admire the most?
Another great question. I probably would admire my father. He's a great man who showed me many things, and someday I hope to be like him.
Nice. What would you say your greatest strengths are?
My greatest strengths are I never know how to give up. I keep pushing forward, and I like to be the best that I can be.
It's a very good strength.
And lastly, what motivates you the most?
What motivates me the most is to create the best America that is possible.
Very
you.
good.
Hi, I'm Katie,
And I'm Bella.
and we're here today interviewing presidential candidate Joe Riordan. So our first question is, if you could completely change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Well, I would say I would probably start with a lot of the ways the government works and start with more of a bottom-down system where the people are more in charge instead of the government and all the higher-up people that are kind of just making a ton of money off of all these people, and they're just telling them what to do instead of the everyday working American doing what they want to do and be in charge of the government.
Okay. Our second question is, who do you admire the most?
I would say probably my father. He was a Border Patrol agent for 10 years, and that's always something I've looked up to. He was always a really honest guy, and he always was just a hardworking American guy.
What are your greatest strengths?
I would say probably one of them is definitely the fact that I'm not exactly the same as the rest of the candidates. I always had a different life growing up. I lived in kind of a country area, rural area, and I always had to work hard for things growing up.
And what motivates you the most?
I would say just a desire to really change things. I got tired of seeing the government just be, everybody was in it for the money instead of just in it for the people.
All right, thank you. That's all.
So this is Ryan Voro speaking with presidential candidate Sean Gallagher representing the Panda Party. So I got a few questions for you, Sean. And the first question I have is, if you could completely change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Well, there's a lot of things I think we need to change in the world, but I think one of the main things that I would focus on is ending wars, because wars just cause a lot of pain and suffering, and we gotta get rid of that. So I'd work very hard to try and get peace in the world.
Yeah. Who do you admire the most?
One of the people I admire the most is probably my dad, because he works very hard to provide for our family, and he sacrifices so much, and really everyone can learn a lot from their parents because of all the sacrifices that they make, and a lot of people don't really understand how much they do for us.
What are your greatest strengths?
I think my greatest strength is always over-preparing. I feel like I usually over-prepare for things, and I think that over-preparing would help America become better. I think everyone should prepare more.
And what do you think motivates you the most?
Probably what motivates me the most is just trying to make the world a better place. I think that should motivate everybody.
Yeah, all right, so you guys here heard everything he said. I think I like what he's saying, so it's really good. Hopefully we get some more information from him in the coming weeks, and we can see what happens after that. So this is Ryan Rohr speaking from Beaufils Television. Have a good night.
Hi, I'm Sophia,
And I'm Sarah.
and we're here with presidential candidate Logan Cowman, and we're going to be interviewing him.
If you could completely change one thing about the world, what would it be?
One of the biggest issues that I find in the world is the fact of how people have become so polarized, and I feel like people can't communicate what they exactly like, or just communicate with one another to try and like just be on an even level playing field and just kind of like listen to the other person and like hear them out, because I feel like people are so, because of them being so separated, they just refuse to hear what everyone else wants to say. And I feel like social media kind of aids in that like issue for the most part. So I feel like if that issue was fixed, I feel like a lot of our communication issues could be fixed a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. Good answer.
Okay.
Who do you admire the most?
So who would I admire the most? So I really look up to my mother. She helped raise me and give me a lot of the personality traits I find in myself. She's very much selfless. She goes out of her way to make sure that we're always doing fine, even if we aren't always in the wrong, especially my sister had a few issues in her past, and she's just very understanding, helps really anyone out, no matter what the circumstance is, so. that's definitely what I look up to.
What would you say are your greatest strengths?
So ever since I was like young, I guess, I always found a passion in committing myself to service, and I definitely feel like I myself kind of gained from my mother the form of selflessness, and being able to commit myself and my time towards helping others through service in any way possible, which is kind of why I entered into public service through the government. So.
And then lastly, what motivates you the most?
I mean, I feel like just to kind of see like the smile on everyone's face, that's kind of the whole thing with service, is it's like you don't really get anything out of community service and volunteering, but I feel like just being able to see like what effect you're actually doing, even if it might be from globally, like a change, because some things you don't necessarily see like right away, so I feel like being able to kind of commit yourself to helping those people out. So
Yeah. Well, thank you, Logan.
I appreciate it and the time you gave.